Welcome to this month's update. As always, we're busy as all get up and go, usually with life, and no exceptions this month or the last few months. If you've been following on Facebook, you saw that I built a new laser. And we'll take a look at that this month, and also a couple laser projects I've been working on. But to be fair, Sean and me were having a discussion, and it became apparent. You know, being so busy, and I understand it, we all deal with this, eventually the layout room just becomes a disaster, and it needs to be cleaned up. And that got me to thinking, after watching a video with Jack Burgess from Yosemite Valley Railroad. He was doing a video on his workbench in his work area, and it just kind of reminded me, after talking to Sean and all, that organization in the layout room really does help you get more done. And so I thought we would go through just a little bit of some of the things I've been doing, mainly because the projects that I've been doing on the laser have much to do with organization, getting my paint booth ready and things like that so that we can use it. But in any case, let's take a look at the new laser, what capabilities it gives me. We'll also take a look at the layout room, what's been going on there, and also my first finished house that I completely built with the laser. So in any case, come on in, let's take a look at what's going on. So if you've watched any of the channel, you know that this is my old laser. This is an old Chinese laser that I got from eBay, and it worked well. Little service that I had to do to get it to finished, to get it to do exactly what I needed to do, but it did work well. Below is the new laser, and we're going to take a tour of this. I'm going to take this carcass down because it's not exactly light, and we'll take a look closer at it. So just 1 minute. So this is the new laser, and there were some design parameters that I wanted to take a look at. As I showed you the old one earlier, it's smaller, and I could only work in roughly an 8.5 by 11-inch area. And a lot of the buildings that I'm going to be doing in Denver, I want to be making out of backdrop buildings out of MDF. And I wanted to be able to put in a fair-sized piece of MDF, like, say, 20 by 24. So by doing that, I needed to have an area in which I could cut a much larger area. This laser actually, its cutting parameters are 24-inch by 33 inches, so plenty of room to move into there. And it allows me to basically, you know, even move this to where it's most convenient for me. The other things I ran into was the old laser, the smoke evacuation system was not the best. This new one is considerably stronger, and frankly, I just don't have any problems. It immediately sucks the smoke right out of it and sends it out outside. So while I'm working here in the wintertime, I'm not smoked down in my own garage, which is my wood shop. The other things I did is just to manage this space better. Like I said, the old one was about this big, and you saw the photograph. The new one is well over twice that size. It's using many of the same parts. I did use a much more robust stepper motors and a better system all the way around. But that being said, it's not much different than what the Chinese laser was. It is different in the sense that both of them had 60-watt lasers, but with the bigger mirrors and a bigger head, I have much more control. For instance, I can actually control the focal point, which is really important in dealing with lasers, of the lens, so I can get it exactly focused on what I want it to be focused on. So some advantages with that. Now, I did not draw up plans or anything like this. I basically got these plans. I went on the internet and found 5 or 6 different ones that were out there, took all those ideas together and kind of melded them together to build what I've got right here. Now, to be fair, I work with stepper motors every day of the week when I'm working at work, so for me, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I just used a lot of my own prior knowledge with just some basic plans and was able to build this. It took me about 6 weeks to build the laser, and it works absolutely fantastic. And so I'm very pleased overall. So other than that, it's not much different than my other laser, other than it's bigger and gives me more power to actually work with. Now, the laser is using the same tube that I had in my Chinese. If you saw it, you have that tube that extended off the end. That was to get a 60-watt laser in there, which is what I would recommend if you're model building. Maybe 80. Matter of fact, I'm considering going to an 80 when this 60 wears out, and I'll go to an 80-watt tube. But I don't ever see myself ever going beyond 80 watts because, quite frankly, even the 60-watt, this is 1/4 inch. The top of this laser cabinet here is made out of 1/4 inch acrylic, cast acrylic, and it cut it with no problem. I didn't even have it didn't even balk at it. It was really very easy to cut with. So I could probably easily get to 10 millimeter or more, which is almost a 1/2 inch. So I'm very pleased with the laser overall. Other than that, it's not much more, just being more organized, having the keyboard floating up above it. The computer is still sitting in the back here. And other than that, it has been absolutely just a treat to work with. And I'll show you some of the organizers I've been doing, because again, that's really what I'm talking about, is getting organized. And that would included organizing this, because when I was building this, there was a lot of thought of, I had this corner here and it was just kind of full of stuff. And so that's why I also got a cabinet down here so I could store just my laser stuff in here, in this tool chest right here, and I could find what it is I'm looking for. So again, being organized will help you produce better models, be more efficient at what you're doing. So anyway, that's a laser. And I'm showing you a couple projects I worked on. We'll go in to the train shop now, and we'll take a look at what's been going on in there. Well, here we are at one of my workbenches, and I have 2 workbenches in my work area. I have one over here. This is basically my locomotive and rolling stock bench. This is my everyday bench that I work on. I build a lot of handmade turnouts right here. All my jigs and everything are located in here and throughout this area here. It's also where I do some of my model building. And to say that I'm organized, right now I can tell you John and Sean are laughing, okay? There are things that I do well. Plan, research, estimate cost, do those type of things. I can do it all day long, don't even think twice about it. But organize a work area or keep an work area clean is a task for me. It is a challenging task for me. It's not that I don't have the ability to organize it, because if I sit down and do it, I can. You can see that my workbench has many of the tools that need to be organized. The problem is, of course, just doing it. And as tasks become greater or a lot of moving parts, it becomes more difficult. So it's an issue we all deal with. Building a layout is messy work. It just is. And trying to get organized in that is sometimes a little more challenging than what you want it to be. But nonetheless, this is some of the things that I've been working on getting organized. And to say I have a fetish for paint would not be fair. It was not this way, 5-10 years ago for me. I basically went to Folkwell, bought whatever colors I wanted, occasionally would buy a polyester coat. Maybe when I walked in the hobby shop, they didn't have a color I wanted in Folkwell, but hey, they had it in Accu paint from I think that's from Badger, and I would buy that. I'd buy testers occasionally if I was working on a model and I needed to buy something like that. But since testers no longer makes Folkwell and no longer makes polyester, I really have been struggling with what to do with paint. I will be the first to say I like lacquer paint. It's my first choice every single time. I will then follow up with enamels, and then if I'm forced to, I will use acrylics. But that's not the world we live in today, and really, to be fair, acrylic paints have really begun to come out much more. and I'm being forced to learn how to paint with my airbrush with acrylic paints. So I still use enamels, I still have some poly-S, and I still have some Folkwell colors that I'm using, but I'm looking over at my paint booth, and what I've got here, I would say that I have somewhere in the near vicinity of about 250 bottles of paint. Still figuring out what I want to do. But nonetheless, that's what I'm doing. So to try and get organized, I took the laser. It was a good opportunity to take a brand new laser and to try and get organized. Now all of these I made out of MDF. These are simply cut, tab and all, and they're allowing me to organize these. Now they're still not exactly organized by color yet, but they're getting there. They'll all get there throughout the thing. And it also gives me a chance to look at my tools and decide what I really want to need. Like this one right here, I'm going to eventually have brushes sitting in the back here. I need to put some dividers in here. I've got holes in there to put the brushes in, but if you drop a long brush in there, it'll slide underneath there. These brushes here are my weathering brushes that I really for stippling pastels and things like this, and these are my sponges for doing different things. And so I kind of have that, and I'm kind of doing two things at one time. I'm drawing out new organizers and trying to decide what tools I need and how to best to make them work, and then to get my workbench organized. And including my paint booth, which before last week, it was the catch-all of anything that might be paint related and anywhere that was a good place to put something I wasn't going to deal with for a while. Now I had, this is a Lazy Susan that I got from Micromark, and I had that in my paint booth. I don't dislike a Lazy Susan, but well, that's not exactly fair. I could see where that would be handy for some people. For me, it is terrible. Every time I want to find a color, it's always on the wrong side. It's never where I want it to be. And I kind of like this idea better where I can see whatever color I want to. So in my paint booth, I have probably about 6 of these in the booth itself. There's plenty of space for me to paint in that booth with these 6 in here. Plus I have a shelf that's just off to my right, which holds probably about another 100 paints in there. So it really is working well doing that. And so it will allow me to actually see if I have the color I need. If I need to get the color, then I can order it, and I can move forward on building whatever model or whatever project I'm doing. And that is really what helps you move along in building a layout, is spending a little time getting organized, and so you can figure out, no, I need this, or no, I don't have that, or no, I have 10 of those, I don't need to go do it. Now, again, John's laughing, I can hear him, because the rule with me and tools is, okay, if I have one ruler, a metal one, then the next time I need to use it, I can't find it because it's not sitting on the magnetic hanger over there, so I better buy another one. And that's how I end up with 3 rulers, and eventually then, you know, everyone's got a metal ruler in the layout room, and we're all working with no problems. But, you know, that's just kind of the way it works. These here are going to be spare parts and things. There's a lot of different things. I have one here that's marked RFID tags for my for the RFID reader I have. I have fine brushes down here, scissors, you know, wires, and all the different types of things that I would use. And these will eventually get filled up. The yellow ones have glues, track cleaning stuff, some small tools, you know, those type of things, molding clay, and little BBs for sticking my paints and mixing them up. And so those are kind of what I'm doing. Eventually, one of the other things, the reason why I didn't use my paint booth all that much was I didn't have a convenient way to use my airbrush. So one of the issues I would run into was I wanted to shoot something with my airbrush, but the only compressor I had was my big 30-gallon compressor I have in my wood shop, and I'd have to drag it out to here, hook it up, and everything else. I recently acquired a airbrush compressor that is really nice and quiet. It'll sit here just in the shop, and what I'm going to do is organize that a little bit and put it on a cart and have all my airbrushes attached to it. So if I want to move to another part of the layout room, I just grab the compressor and the airbrushes and slide it over where I want to. I also want to set it up so that it has a couple trays to hold some paints. Not as many as this, but just a few, so whenever I'm working on something, I can keep working and not have to go chase down a paint. So that's kind of what I've been doing the last couple of weeks, is getting this place organized, because if it's organized, Sean and me can get a lot more done and we can begin to move forward. And that has been a real hindrance on getting things moving forward. Not to mention the fact that real life is getting in the way and we're just got no time to work on things. But nonetheless, let's take a look at Longmont, at what we've got going on there, and some ground covers. Got a new ground cover tip that might be helpful for some of you. And take a look at my first fully scratch-built house from completed. So let's take a look at that right now. Well, here we are in Longmont, and as you can see, this is more ground cover starting to come in, and I'm going to rotate this just a bit here so you can see that we have these two colors here, and they're actually were done differently. The first one was done with my old method, which is I have some brown dirt that I get from over at Eastern Washington. It's kind of a dusty, but when it gets wet with the white glue, it turns kind of dark. It's really kind of muddy, and I don't really like it. And so what I would do is I'd have to go in and then hit it with airbrush. I love the texture, love how smooth it is, and it just really makes a good ground cover for HO scale. But it's too dark, and so I've always gone in and just basically, airbrushed it back in. And, you know, we just got done talking about airbrush and how much of a hassle it is sometimes. Well, I'd like to give credit to the YouTube person that I actually saw the video from. But I know it's not new, and I just happened to run across a video of somebody mixing in grout with their dirt and actually changing the color. And so I looked at it and I said, you know, that's a good idea. Let me see if I can do that. Now, this matches really well, and it took me a little experiment. I ended up buying about 3 boxes of grout, and I got the unsanded. Not that I think it makes a different one way or the other, but that's what I happen to get. And by mixing it, I now know that if I mix that dirt with about 50% of the grout that I got, which is just a simple grout that I got at the big store. This one is called linen, and I simply just mix that 50-50, and that basically gets the color pretty darn close to what I'm looking for. And it makes it really easy because now I don't have to go in with an airbrush and touch everything else up. Now I'm still using a white glue mixture to bond it down. I still like that the best. Just because it makes it nice and firm, and then when I vacuum it up, it's a piece of cake, and then I can continue on. So in this area here, we've got, this is a couple older models that I had before, and I'll probably will maintain them. I'm going to change the roof on this one a little bit, but I will finish this one up. And this building is a building that I got. This is my Rusty Bob radiator shop. And it was on my Colorado and Coyote Creek, and I'm just going to use it again. I like the model. It's a nice fit. It actually happens to fit in my area that I'm working in here, and I will basically, there was a, real close to the foundry, there is a junkyard, and I'm going to turn this into a junkyard right into here. And as we get down into Longmont here, you can see we're really starting to get the city to come in much closer. And I'm going to focus in on this building right here. This is one of my completed laser cut buildings from scratch. This is a Sears and Roebuck plan that I actually designed this building from. And just kind of give you an idea of how, what the laser can do and how nice some of the models. So the nice thing about it is nobody else unless they designed it, has one on their layout, which makes it kind of nice. So I'm going to take the camera up, pick it up, and move it over so that you can take a look at that building, and we'll go from there. Okay, so here's my Sears and Roebuck house. This house was made entirely from basswood and polyback, which is an MDF product, real thin product. And the shingles are best shingles that I used. And so the laser did all the cutting of all in front of the porches and everything. The garage there off to the side. Now you see a temporary stairway sitting in front as I try to figure out how I'm going to do the sidewalk and the stairs going into that. But just basically painted, nothing fancy. It's just a basic Sears and Roebuck house. There's a next door kit house right next door to it, and it's just kind of unique because it's the only one that I've seen because it's scratch built, and that's kind of interesting when you go to see new layouts. So anyway, we'll pick up from there. Well, that's this month's update. Sorry that the videos have been sporadic. But as you can see, we are working on stuff. And to be fair, Sean is actually working on the new sugar mill. And we'll probably have that in the next video update too as well. So while it doesn't seem like much is going on, a lot is going on. A lot of it is not being done here at the layout area, but you can see elsewhere. Sean's working on that. I'm starting to work on drawing and designing a lot of the buildings that'll go into Denver. And to be fair, research is where I spend most of my time. I finally got a image of Longmont and found where the grain elevators used to be, and it's actually going to show up on the layout. I'm actually going to be able to put them on the layout. And so that actually, to give you an idea, I actually went through, Longmont Library has a historical image database. And that database, I was able to go through. Now granted, there were 8,350 some odd photographs there, but I went through every last one of them until I found the one and only photograph that I was really looking for. And so I was able to get that, and now I've got actually an aerial shot of the area that we're modeling, which has really helped me out in getting a lot of this done. So while not a lot is being accomplished in the sense of actually seeing changes, we are getting things done, and we've got a plan, which that is really the important part of this. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed this month's update, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the laser and what you can do with it, seeing how important it is to be organized. As a matter of fact, this video would not be possible. Where you are standing right now originally was just a table full of models that I had been modeling and working on and manipulating and changing and pulling things out, and locomotives I've been working on, and it just was getting to be just such a mess. And because of Sean's help in cleaning this up, this video came out. So if you see him on Facebook, say thanks. In any case, we'll talk to you until next time. Until then, happy modeling.